So we provide educational resources like what is classical education, what are some of the the ideological stuff so they can better understand what are their rights. We have opt-out forms if there are things that they would like to opt out of. We educate them on that. We provide them with a toolkit of resources. And our goal is just to make them more sophisticated so they can navigate their child's classroom or their school district better. We're not expecting them to always run for school board, but at least get involved in your classroom. Know what's going on. Don't be afraid to answer or to ask questions to your teacher, your child's teacher. One of our efforts is building bridges between teachers and parents, which is so important, especially after 2020 when, people didn't trust teachers anymore. Now it's time to build bridges, and we just tell parents that, teachers really are on your side.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. Today we're recording from the State Policy Network's annual meeting. The State Policy Network, or SPN, focuses on ideas like limited government, free markets, and local solutions. And they give groups the tools and support to make those ideas work in their own states. And what's cool is that we're getting to meet and talk to some of these groups and then share with you who they are. For this episode, we're going to focus on one group that not only helps families when it comes to education, but also supports teachers frustrated by the barriers that prevent them from truly teaching. For some people, the passion for education was sparked during the lockdown in 2020, leading to the creation of several groups working to find solutions, and this group was one of them. Since not every family can consider options outside the public school system, they're also committed to improving schools for all students. One issue they saw was that many students were receiving a skills-based education instead of a knowledge-based one. So, one of their key efforts is to review and improve educational standards. So let's get into how this group is helping improve education. I want to help welcome to the podcast Melissa Jackson, who is the co-founder and president of Freedom in Education. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you're having a good time here at the SPN conference.
It's beautiful here. The weather's great.
Yeah, it's been
Lots
great.
of great people.
I don't know if we told our audience that we're in New Orleans, so a lot worse places we could be. Certainly a good time, but it's fun to talk about freedom, opportunity, liberty for folks, and particularly in this case in education for students.
Absolutely.
So before we talk about freedom in education, maybe tell me how you got interested in the education space.
Yes. Well, it happened in 2020. So when I have 4 kids, and most of them were in middle school. I had 1 in high school, 2 in middle school, and 1 in elementary school. So everybody was doing virtual learning, and everybody was done with school every morning by 10 a.m. On the couch watching who knows what. And so I kind of became concerned. And so the more I explored that, the more I realized that they really weren't getting schooling that year. I think I averaged, maybe they got 300 hours that whole year, and it really wasn't direct instruction. It was a worksheet. So that's when I actually began to dig into the curriculum. And I did see the controversial, ideological, things that they were teaching. But more importantly, what concerned me is they really weren't teaching anything. They weren't learning anything in any of their academic subjects. So, of course, we basically lost a year, and actually even more when you consider, the additional learning loss. So that's really what got me interested back then. So that's when I first got involved in education.
So prior to the lockdown,
Yep.
your kids being home, did you feel generally satisfied with what they were doing?
Yeah, because we picked an area to live in, that was known for good schools. And I had stayed home 14 years to raise the kids, and then I went back to work kind of part-time. So I wasn't concerned. I felt like I was in touch. I'd go through their backpacks, ask them what they were learning. I was involved with the school, but I did not go to very many school board meetings. So I kind of blame myself, like a lot of parents, that, I probably should have been a lot more involved, but I think I was just too trusting.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they pay extra money basically to live in great school districts, they buy a house. Yep. It's probably one of the main drivers why people buy their house in the suburbs or a certain area.
That's exactly it.
And you with that price, I'm going to trust it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that, the lockdowns in 2000 were such a eye-opening experience for so many parents.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you before we were talking that, I come from a homeschool family. I went to all public school, but we homeschooled our kids, and it was so cool to see so many people kind of come along during that time and be like, hey, almost, it was just empowering almost. It was like, hey, we can do this.
Right.
And to have that confidence that we can do this, not only, there was an unease that, hey, this isn't working, but also
Right.
then to turn the page and say, hey, we can do this. And to see so many families and kids come into that space of doing the non-traditional learning, doing something that fits better for that student, I think it's been great. And
I agree.
energized our movement towards more education
Absolutely.
freedom, which has been really cool. So,
Yeah.
well, tell me about Freedom in Education, how it started and what you guys are doing.
So back in 2020, when I started getting involved in education with other parents, we dug in to kind of learn what was going on, and we were educating parents on all the problems in the classroom. But we finally got to a certain point where we thought we can't just keep telling parents about all the awful things that are happening in the classroom. It's time for some solutions. So we started Freedom in Education back in July of 2023. With the idea that we need practical, impactful solutions in the classroom. And so it's been 2 years, and we've created quite a few solutions that we're pretty proud of. But the focus has always been about the child, whatever's better for the child, whatever allows the child to learn, but also the teacher to teach.
So I love that you do have some focus on the teachers too.
Yeah.
I think often some of us in the education freedom movement appropriately think about kids and families because that's
Right.
what we want to put first. But so many teachers, the vast majority of teachers are in this to teach kids,
Right.
Because they love that, and it's a passion. In fact, I think in our current system we lose so many good teachers because they see it's not what they want.
Yes.
It's not what they could do. So what do you guys do to support teachers?
Well, we have a teacher coalition. And what's important to us is that it's not a sounding board, right? We want to engage the teachers in solutions because you're right. They chose that profession because they care about kids. And what we've heard from teachers is, I feel like you guys are elevating the profession of teaching, which is what we want. It should be a well-respected profession. And so we did a teachers conference in DC this past summer. Over 400 teachers there, all excited to be there, all excited to get content-rich professional development that makes them more empowered and more equipped to teach our kids.
That's great. I do think that one of the ways that we will pick up even more steam as a movement in education freedom is by continuing to invite those teachers who are doing it for such the right reasons to come join. I mean, you probably know this. I know you being in Georgia, I can think of actual examples of this. There's micro schools and other types of learning pods that have been started and led by former teachers, former public school teachers. I mean, they're some of the best advocates for education freedom because they've seen both sides of it and they've seen the results.
And there's so many entrepreneurial, there's such an entrepreneurial spirit lately that I think just letting teachers know there are other options, like you said, the micro schools, the homeschool pods, learning school pods, so many choices for teachers now.
That's awesome. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing to support parents?
Well, we have an Equipping Parents initiative. So we provide educational resources like what is classical education? What are some of the, the ideological stuff so they can better understand what are their rights? We have opt-out forms if there are things that they would like to opt out of. We educate them on that. We provide them with a toolkit of resources. And our goal is just to make them more sophisticated so they can navigate their child's classroom or their school district better. We're not expecting them to always run for school board, but at least get involved in your classroom. Know what's going on. Don't be afraid to answer or to ask questions to your teacher, your child's teacher. One of our efforts is building bridges between teachers and parents, which is so important, especially after 2020 when, people didn't trust teachers anymore. Now it's time to build bridges. And we just tell parents that, teachers really are on your side. So we think that's critical.
I think one of the things that we find, or that I've found with parents is, one, it was great for parents to kind of take back some responsibility for their kids' education and get involved. And we saw that, in school board races and people showing up at meetings and having contentious meetings and actually really saying, well, wait a minute, I'm putting my foot down. These are my kids.
Right.
And so just that involvement's been fabulous. But then I think another key thing that I think you guys are doing is folks who decide to take a different pathway. Maybe they're going to homeschool.
Yes.
That's really intimidating. I mean,
oh gosh,
I was fortunate that, my wife at the time was able to, she was homeschooled.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a mystery to her. She knew her kids weren't going to be illiterate when they were 15 years old. But I was sharing with another guest recently that my mom was a public school teacher her whole career. And I don't think she knew or really believed that my kids would be literate by the time they're 15 years old. And, but we have so many people who they get into it or they want to do it, but there's a barrier of confidence and knowledge.
I think it's intimidating. I was one of those people. I had girlfriends that did it, and I thought, oh, that's weird. Like, why would I do that? They're not going to be socialized. But I wish I would have had the courage to step out then. But I think now, because of everything that's happened, there's so many more resources for parents. So my biggest thing was, where do I even begin? How do I pick the curriculum? There's so much more out there that, now I think about my grandkids. But yeah, I wish I could do it all over again.
Yeah, well, hindsight's always 2020, right? I mean, yeah, there's plenty. I got plenty of kids, and I got plenty of regrets too. So I talked in the intro a little bit about you guys recognized some difference between skill-based learning and knowledge-based.
Yes.
Can you maybe talk about that? Maybe give an example of that?
Sure. So most of the standards that are used by the state, there's definitely a monopoly of one set of standards. Now, each state will tweak their standards, right, and label it whatever they want. But it's basically the foundation is skills-based standards, which truly just means skills, building models, compare and contrast. But the problem is we need to be teaching knowledge. With the knowledge gap, the knowledge deficit the way it is, it's because we're not pouring knowledge into our children. And so, for an example, if you're in second grade and you're asked to compare and contrast the weather between Alaska and Arizona, well, first that child has to know, well, what is the weather in Alaska? What is it in Arizona? Where are they? So they have to have that knowledge first before they're able to adequately do that with those types of skills. So, and we especially see this with economically disadvantaged kids who already come to school with a knowledge deficit. And if they do that and we're not pouring knowledge into them at school, it's just going to get worse, which is what we're seeing. We're seeing a bigger achievement gap. So our standards focus on teaching knowledge K through 12.
So what are some challenges you guys have faced in trying to get those standards changed?
Well, at the state level, so we have a model top down, bottom up. So we work at the grassroots level to educate, and so they can put pressure on their school districts and states. But we also work with state education officials and legislators. It's the bureaucracy.
Uh-huh.
So, we talk about defederalization, and that's great, but we've got 50 mini federal governments to deal with. And so while you may have some superintendents who might be bold and want to do courageous things, they've got an administration, and maybe some people in the administration aren't quite as bold or courageous to do those things. So it's navigating that bureaucracy that's the biggest hindrance. Yeah.
I mean, the state is really the driving power when it comes to determining education.
Yes.
So often, obviously the local
local
has a role.
Control. Yeah.
And then probably the federal government's third in that.
Right.
I don't think people always realize that.
Right.
I always love when people run for Congress on education. I'm like, might not be that impactful on that, but God bless,
Right. It's a good line.
Yeah. But it is a challenge. I mean, I think even a lot of well-meaning right of center folks who share a lot of our values on a number of different issues, especially in the rural areas, really have a hard time kind of embracing a diversity of education choices, whether it be an ESA or tax credits or other things, because the left, I think, has been very effective at scaring people with like, oh, they're just going to take the money. And so, how have you guys kind of overcome some of that, or how do you deal with those situations?
Well, I guess like in the rural areas, the school district is the biggest employer. So I think educating people that there's this entrepreneurial. You can start a micro school if you want to. You can start a homeschool, and there's organizations to help you do that. So I think it's just educating parents, and do you want to continue to have poor outcomes, or do you want to make a change? It's your choice. And again, we just go back to everything that we do is centered around the better outcomes for the child.
So you guys have been doing this for about half a decade, right? So
half a decade. No,
probably seems a lot longer.
Yeah.
But are there any stories or any moments that you remember as either most important or most encouraging to you?
During Freedom in Education?
Yeah.
I think we look at this as a marathon. Progressive education has been around for so long. We're just chipping away. So we consider a win when a state, and we have several states that have taken bits and pieces of our standards, our science standards. That's a win for us.
Mm-hmm.
If we can change their mindset on what kind of standards should be taught, that is a win, because we open that door, and just little by little, we keep applying pressure in hopes that, again, they make good choices for children in their state. Cool.
That's great. So my understanding is that you guys have 2 podcasts. So yes. What are the podcasts, and what do they do?
So we have a Founders podcast, and that focuses on, it's very interesting. It focuses on interviewing people about probably more academic type, the science of learning, the science of reading. Beanie Gohegan does a great job with that. So if parents really want to get in and learn the details of what is direct instruction, what is science of learning, what should classroom management look like, those are excellent podcasts. And then we have our our Carpool Talk, which is specifically targeted for parents. It's smaller, digestible content that we can explain to parents what is direct instruction without getting too, academic or in the weeds.
That's great. Yeah. So, and where can they just find them going on like YouTube or probably all the
we have a YouTube channel, but the Apple podcast. I am not a technical podcast person, but Spotify, your favorite platform.
Yeah. So generally, if anybody wants to find out more about Freedom in Education or the podcast, what's the best place to go?
Please go to freedomined.org. And we will, you'll just have resources for parents, for teachers, for state education officials. That's where all of our solutions are housed.
That's great. Well, you're doing the Lord's work for sure.
Amen.
And I as somebody who's a kind of fellow traveler in the education freedom movement, and from a personal standpoint and professionally, I'm so excited about the time we're in. And groups like yours have sprung up to really help drive real change, not only in the public policy end, but the people who are in the system, it'd be teachers or parents or kids.
Yes, it's a whole ecosystem that we speak to. Yeah.
I appreciate that recognition of it, and that you guys are filling that space. So good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. If you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.